This is Calcat, and this is the audio commentary track of Karda, the original Saga. This is Calcat, and this is a 5-minute bit from the Sneak Storm, sort of a little preview thing of Karda, showing the Kardas before they were used in the movie. So it looks like Sneak Storm, but it's actually just select bits from Sneak Storm, in the same way that the original Adams tape broadcast them. And I messed up my line. Decepticon Autobot headquarters. So this is the Karda saga, and the characters in it are roughly based on Transformers, done up as cardboard robots. The Karda. They've recently been changed to Karda with a K in the past 10 years, because Karda with a C is a known company. Karda with a K, not as much. It's a little known company. So here's the engine thing. On the trans commentary, I explained that those were model rockets, and some of them, and that you could launch them, and that you could blow things up with them, which is funny, because if you did, they would explode on the pad. What's interesting is the early Karda aircraft carrier, before it was painted, was put in there. And that was the JWS Cat, named for John Williams, who had actually had left at that point. John Williams. And there's Transbot, who is the transit robot Gestalt. And Transformer Bot. Or he could be the transsexual Gestalt, who is actually male and female. Maybe not. But there he is, the Transbot. And the space Legos. We were playing with space Legos before they had such a thing as space Lego. We were there at the beginning, way back when. There's a little bit of my nephew David Brown via my half-brother Robert, who is old enough to be a father, actually, because he's like, my dad was like in his 80s when he passed away. So Robert is now in his 60s. Therefore, David and I are roughly in our 40s. So yeah, back then though, this is when we were in our teens, and there's a little bit of David in here. Not sure how much, maybe not much. And well, he thought it was weird, but then again, so was he. So, here's the Karda story. They made these cardboard robots, which are kind of creative, and the whole creative idea of making like robots, Transformers of your very own, and little robots from Joyce Palmer, from the counselor office. There's it was Skyfire. So yeah, this is an edited version of that Skyfire footage from Trans, and just enough of it to show that the Transformers and Jetfire are around during the Karda era in the 80s. The Transformers the movie was yet to come out, and when it did, it threw the whole thing completely off. So the Battle of the Alicom had to take place 19 years later to go with the movie. The movie took place in 2005. So the Karda here have some bizarre ideas about where they came from and where they're going. Mark's Cards and I did the sequel in 1994 during Trans 2. And Karda the Return, and we could probably do a commentary with Mark's Cards on that one, and maybe some of the other ones later. But this one is a commentary on Karda, which he had nothing really to do with. That would be John Yeager. He came around in 1986 in September. Also was part of Silly Trek. And this is why. Okay, that's David. And then we have. The Kardas were genuinely not only cheap, but kind of dumb. And I think that was probably just because like we thought bullies were dumb, and it would be funny to have like the bullies just be stupid. Of course, yeah, we were obviously teenagers. There's Capri Karda on the ground there, kind of a mess. Or some of the other guys. Or somebody. The destruction that is taking place. And then they rebuilt the other guy as this little... the Karda jet dude battle tank. I remember I built a Karda that we had in the self class. It was like a really, really special edition Karda that was called the X31. and he was transformable. He had 3 modes, like a Jetfire, but he was a Karda. He was made out of paper and cardboard and stuff. Very creative. I rebuilt him with 2 modes only in 1994, and then again in 2002 for the Transtech. I rebuilt him again as the Jetfire, Skyfire kind of guy. He kind of was anyway. He only had 2 modes at that point. Well, he sort of had a battle station mode that was his alternate mode, but you never saw him in battle station mode. Actually, a lot of the Kardas from Trans didn't really have mode. This is the early gunship. And what's funny is gunship is Legos. And for some reason, Skyfire wants him to kill Sunstreaker, I guess because he killed his brother, which is a throwback to David's idea, my nephew, from this time period. David's idea that it would have been funny to have the reason that there's Mirage only has 1 twin brother is because Sunstreaker killed him in a fit of rage during a battle, or during a Russian roulette game or something, which we reenacted in Trans Tech, the first movie. But David was not involved in that. And now we start off with the Karda, and the announcement that Karda, the Space Lego Karda battle, actual footage, is now, according to this version, takes place in 2005 after the movie. And that makes a lot more sense. So... And then jumps a few years later on. Now, in the original concept, which we'll see later in the outtakes, it jumps ahead billions of years, which we didn't think made any sense, even later. So we took that and put in the commentary track. There's some interesting stuff going on in here. I'd like to say it was on purpose, but I don't think it was. The Space Lego ship back there in the background, it's very creative. They didn't have Lego builder sets back then. They didn't have Creo and Lego like Star Wars and Space Set and Ninjas and all that other stuff. Harry Potter. They never made Lego Star Trek. They should have. They never had those. That's a space shuttle because the Challenger disaster had happened in 1986 in January. And I thought what would be cool is if I visualized a space shuttle Karda that had a detachable saucer section. Even though before Star Trek did it, detachable saucer section that could come off, or detachable command section, and land the shuttle, saving the crew, which is an interesting idea. And I was 16 when I thought of that. They didn't have shuttles that could do that. And but I thought that up and thought, why couldn't they have a detachable section? I was kind of ripping off Transformers the movie because they had a scene in which the shuttle did the same thing. The command section detached to get away from the Decepticons. And this does take place a little bit after Transformers the movie, so at this point. So I think I already knew that and was kind of ripping it off. But they thought along the same lines as I did, the Karda thing. So yeah, there's the carrier all painted up. This is months later. And there's Strawberg's empire of crappy little Karda robots in a case of dog food. That's kind of appropriate. Strawberg was named after a kid from Pine Hill who wasn't really an evil maniacal genius. He was more of a pothead and a stoner, and he was not well liked. So it was funny to make fun of him. The Alicom was also named after a Pine Hill student who was not well liked. The JWS cat comes from John Williams, and he was one of the early genesis of all this stuff before it was... He left in 83. He was more or less one of the creators of KATS, the co-creator of KATS, the radio skits, the comedy sketches we did. And he was just... and I decided to honor him with a ship named after him. He went away in 83. We were both the same age, and he moved up to Oregon. And he wasn't seen again until 1989, in Christmas time. And neither was KATS. We decided to rename it K10 and K-Skit on the radio skits until 1990, January 90, in which, after I got back from the Christmas and New Year's special, and said, okay, KATS, John Williams didn't want it. So KATS became ours again. And this is Pirated Productions that did this. This is Catico. That company went out of business. Catico went out of business during 1990, roughly, around when KTS came back. And then I think it straggled on a little bit off and on as pirated shows, pirated productions until they backed Transtech. And so when they did that, we had it end with them doing that. The Transtech. Pirated shows then went bankrupt again, doing the trans movies, getting all the Transformers, especially after the new toy lines came out for Armada and Cybertron and Energon during the making of Transtech. And we put them all in our movie as much as we could. And so, yeah. Tim Cantrell and Jim Bufkin were around in 96 at this point. And Tim Cantrell and I decided that we would marathon watch the video of this Transformers movie when it came out on video in March of 87. So we watched it over and over again for an entire week. We saw it over 16, 17 times. And I finally won, having seen it 18 times. We watched that movie so many times that we literally memorized the movie, which I tested by typing up the script at one point. I'm not sure what happened to it, but I typed up the script. But yeah, I had a propensity in these stories to imagine what it would be like for like cars or spaceships or whatnot, the drivers to be humans or G.I. Joes, but not show it. So I would have like the Admiral in the aircraft carrier and just assume the audience knew there was supposed to be a guy in the aircraft carrier, not just a drawing on the side of the ship with a face. Like, what was I doing? And it was cool that they made up the Transformers line because then I could make up my own like animated robot guys. And that's one of the things the Michael Bay movies didn't get right, and that us old school Transformers fans, although we liked it, we didn't like a lot of what he didn't get right. Mark's Cards or John Yeager would say no, he didn't like them really much at all. But in the case of this one, the novelty, the idea that your robots can turn into a car is really cool. That idea we like. There's Beast Mix, and the idea of the whole thing is just, it's very interesting watching this again. I like that it's more kinetic than than even Trans. It's filmed during it, and concurrent with it. It's in the same studio, using the same sets. Kind of tell, Veritech mode. Yeah. So we have lots of interesting things going on here. The new Lego Bionicles, they actually are robots. So you can actually buy Legos nowadays that will look like Transformers and Creo Transformers, and they'll kind of look like them. I was doing them on my own, building back then. There's Max Sterling apparently getting killed. And yes, the Robotechs were in it, but only vaguely, and the Transformers too. There's apparently a battle going on here. It's hard to tell, but that's what's going on. And that blue jet guy, who was also a model rocket, but never launched. It would have exploded on the pad. He is Airflight. He's the Karda leader. He'll become Airflight later. Then they launched the giant robot Lego guy that David and I built. And so wasn't exactly on the highest level of cartoon maturity here, but why not? And that Lego robot was so cheap it had to like lie down on its side. We weren't sure if it would actually not fall apart when we took it down here and put it on the ground. It probably was gonna. So this is Karda. And there's the Karda Lego bot. In his Legobotic transforming car thingy. Arms link. I don't think any of my other silly voices at the time are actually in this part. But if they do come out, of course, then maybe there's a little bit there. It's interesting looking back at these Lego robots and made up ones. I had this book that I designed back then of what the different ones were supposed to look like. The Karda models came close. It wasn't until really we started reinventing them later on in the 1990s and then 2000s that they became even more creative. In the 90s, they were filled with like paper towel material and stuff. and made thicker. In the 2000s, they were actually not made of cardboard at all anymore. They were balsa wood with very little cardboard stuff, extremity stuck on the outside. Very, very little, or maybe stickers. Coptrin and Plantech. And I was looking at this earlier, Coptrin and Plantech thing, thinking that it was maybe like the Battle Chargers or some of the other Transformers ideas. But actually, no, it's an Alpha Fighter and a Beta Fighter. But it's just really cheap. It's Robotech. It's definitely a Robotech thing. So that's what this is supposed to be. I had battle tanks too. I didn't have them. Tim had a toy battle tank. I had a blue guy. I had one of the Alpha Fighters. They didn't actually make the Beta Fighter until 2004 as a toy. And they made it after they released the toy line where they released all the collector's edition ones. I was able to procure the red collector's edition Rook Bartley fighter and put it in the Transtech movies in the background. But it's really a museum piece, as the guy that sold it to me said on eBay. He's all like, it's a museum piece. You can't really play with it. You can just look at it. It's really complex. And so, and then they sold the Beta Fighter that goes with it. So it's the Alpha Fighter and Beta Fighter from Robotech, from New Generation. And New Generation. And that's. I didn't get the Beta Fighter. He was much more. He would be the Alpha Fighter was 100 and something, so the Beta Fighter would be 200 and something. It's like I couldn't afford that. It would have been big too, but that would have been cool. But still, now he's ridiculously overpriced. Now even 2008 reissues of the Macross Do You Remember Love things are going for 200, which is silly because they're the reissues anyway. They're the reissues of reissues. 2008. Hopefully in 2014, the 30th anniversary of Robotech, they'll do something. Yes, that'll be a little little cheaper. Yes, the other Kardas. Some of these guys are really cheap. They were called the Robots in the Cheap in 1994. I made up tech specs and personality cards for them, ripped off from Transformer. They've all new names. And there was cross-pollination. I gave a guy named Miss Fire, a girl, Karda. Ms. Fire, after Mrs. Doubtfire. That's what it's from. And the Transformers came out with a Target Master called Misfire. I was like, it's not my idea. Except he's a male one, which is weird because he's pink and purple. He's obviously supposed to be a girl. But you never actually see him say anything when they introduce him. He's like, Misfire, and he files it. So it could be a chick. Because he's pink. But I made him a guy. And now we're outside. In this scene, we're outside doing an outdoor shoot. And out in the backyard on the set. Link up. That's the Dogobot. I redid those. They were in Transtech. They were way better in Transtech. They actually looked like little Dogbot things. And yeah, the bad guys are consistently stupid and unable to do anything right. And there's Scorpio Bot flying away, and he has little legs. I rebuilt him as a Karda, and I didn't use him in the Transtech movies, but I used him in PlantCom, the PlanetCom reissue 2007, because I forgot to use him in the Transtech movie. So I was like, I got to use this guy before we take him apart and put him away. So I had him in as the bad guy ship. I built lots of them I didn't use, so we couldn't use them. I saved the basic prototypes of each initial gestalt so I could rebuild them. All the tech specs, how they were drawn. I saved most of how the cue cards went up, and all the tech specs, which are the little bio cards. So I can easily reconstruct all of the card if I want to in the future. And there's Water Jet, even though there's no water anywhere. He fires missiles. He's like a little spider with missiles. It's kind of a cool idea. Very Bionicle-like, actually. I'm looking at it. Explosion destroys the base, covering them for 3 years. But they think that it's later. Yes, March 2008. So now we jump to 2008. Now in the original story, as you'll see in the bloopers part, the original story, they thought it was 2 billion years later, which is impossible. The Earth and Sun would be completely different. There'd be nobody around. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it's ridiculous they wouldn't know there was anybody around, but it's ridiculous they're cardboard. So why not? It's only 2008 now. It's in this new version. Here's the Dogbots attacking Scorpiotron, and most of that was damaged, so they skipped to the park on the edge of the set, the Murphy Park. Somebody had built a sandcastle. I remember filming this. I remember doing this on the set that day in '87, and it was cold. It was morning, and some kids had constructed a sandcastle that they'd stepped in, and part of it was still there. So I just built walls up on it and brought my Karda out and filmed it, and filmed them getting sand on them and shot at. So this like the base thing. It was already somebody's sandcastle. And Danny, who is later on in the stories as a 6 and then an 8-year-old, here is it's not really 2008. It was filmed in '87. Here he'd be a 1-year-old and he wouldn't be it. But so this is the giant Karda Essig weapon, evil secret weapon, getting knocked over, and we had some other Kardas that were never featured in the movies. It might be interesting to know that we had some named after us. We had Atomicon, and he was a jet car thing that transformed into a robot. We had Timinus and Timinus Prime, and he was like a Power Master truck dude that kind of turned into a bus. Kneel down to me. We had, there's Sky Stance. He's sort of the Veritech guy, but like a primitive. Yeah, he's the Veritech. He's the same kind of guy. So he is in there. The Veritech, a version of the Veritech guy is in this movie. But we had that one. But the funniest one we had was Fortress Buffkinus, which is named after Jim Buffkin from the same area. And he was cheap. Yeah. Very. But he was this giant robot ship guy. He was actually pretty big. He was like Fortress Maximus size, a little bigger. And all the Karda could fit in him. And Angie Tyson, who was the leader of our Minions group, sort of our benevolent, non-evil, non-threatening gang that only pranked each other. That guy's kind of neat, Sky Stance. But anyway, Angie Tyson had a car named Angelique Tysotron. And Joyce Palmer, the counselor, was Joycetron. And Mom is still Mega Mom. But yeah, so we have... but we have these Kardas in here. Transformers. And Martha, my sister, found a lot of this stuff really annoying. And I was pointed out on the other tape. She's the one that started it. She got the Sideswipe toy for Christmas. Gave it to me. It was birthday. That was beginning right there. So no end in sight after that. Okay, there's a shameless plug for Nike shoes over there. Or Nikkei or Nike shoes. We say Nike, but it's actually Nikkei. In Greek. I mean, it's success. Ways in here. We just showed them anyway. It's a little bit of gonk there, but I think it's just the film. Yeah, it's not the tape. Just the film. So we have the 601, which the 301 is 101 is the Robotech Battle Fortress's arm. The 101 and the 102. So I think the implication was that was supposed to be one of the SDF-1's arms, which is crazy. If that thing was actually built as a toy, the SDF-1 would have been 9 feet long to be scaled with Jetfire. That would have been a crazy toy. Where would you put that? Yeah, so the new Michael Bay movies they had too much comic relief. There wasn't a lot of comic relief in the original Transformers. So yeah. Karda has comic relief because it can get away with it. And we had this shag rug in the living room carpet. It got really skanky. Well, we have this old shag rug, and it doesn't look like water, but it's supposed to be. But it doesn't look like ground either. Sort of a weird cottony sort of carpet from the 80s. The unbreakable Kardas, yeah, I'm thinking they're not really. What was funny about this ship is, in this heavily edited version of Karda, which is actually watchable, is that we have the battleship there, which was actually floatable. It was actually done over in 3 coats of lacquer paint and sealed completely, and the cardboard was sealed completely, and you could float it in a pool. And we had the neighbor's pool. We just never got around to floating it in the pool. Also, we had the pool down the street. I don't know whether the Cabana Club would have let us float a toy in the pool that like that. They probably would have if we just done it at night or something. But it would have been funny to see it sink, because no doubt it would have sunk because the back part wasn't really waterproof. So it would have gone. In Karda 2, we rebuilt it as a giant green box and put all the Karda in it. Completely rebuilt everything. They were literally falling apart on the set. Okay. I still do not trust the Karda. We still do not trust them to fix me. But this is, and there's other, like, this is made out of a whisk box. If you're going to build a cardboard robot, don't use a laundry soap detergent box to build it out of. Not that it's like hard to use, but the laundry soap gets all over it, and you can't paste anything to it. Yeah, don't use that. But there we go. The cardboard robots. Dock ship. What's funny about that thing is the bottom of it is actually literally a piece of wood. It's literally a block of wood from the backyard. The battleship. Battleship was built from the wreckage of that shuttle that crashed in the original continuity. And the other one was built from the airplane. And they thought that for some reason they were billions of years in the future, which was addressed in Karda 2. As over the rise, don't be stupid. It can't be billions of years later if there are people there in Transformers. Whereas in that one, we didn't have enough new Kardas built, so we just used Generation 2 Transformers as some of the Karda, which is kind of confusing watching it and like having different names attributed to Transformers, but it's really no different than what they did with the Japanese Transformers run when they continued in Japan what we did here in the U.S. Originally, the Transformers was called Diaclone over there. Transformers Diaclone, and they had the Destrons, the Decepticons, and the Cybertrons were the Autobots in Diaclone, and they never stopped. The Japanese never had a glut of the robot craze. They just kept going. And as I said on the Trans Saga, they had many copies. You can look them all up. They continued the Headmaster Saga as a full series. Godmaster Force was basically Power Masters. It meets the Pretenders, which Pretenders they kind of sucked. Then they had Transformers Victory, which is the current one, which is basically the Transformers meet Gundam, which is just bizarre. And they have this guy called Starsaber, who is basically a Gundam Autobot. He's basically a Gundam, man. He's Gundam 1. This is hilarious. It's like, what? He's a Gundam. So that's cool. Well, Robotech had spin-offs too, on Orgus and all that, but some of the lesser ones. Robotech and Macross. He doesn't like anything. Can't hate anything. So the bad guy card has apparently decided to build more evil forces, I guess. And good guys, too. Oh, yeah, there's a little Cyclone rider in there, Robotech. And, of course, Robotech was Macross in Japan. It was Macross, it was Southern Cavalry Southern Cross, and it was also Matsupeada. That's a acronym for something. Something to do with transforming your mecha, actually. So there were 3 discrete series by this one group. Tatsuono, I think? Somebody like that. And then, also there's elements of Star Blazers and 80s Galactica in here. This is supposed to be the 1980s when this was filmed, and it was. And of course, I totally got the idea, even back then, that, every time they have a new episode, we introduce a new toy. in the new episode. So here's another new toy you have to go out and buy, kids. Go out and buy it. Yes, it was a giant toy commercial for toys, the Transformers, and baby stroller box transformed into an enemy base, and Graco is a proud sponsor of our little movie here. Yeah, right. Oh, well, we had to have some sponsors, but here we have this little. Kind of looks like Irona from an actual Karda version of Irona, but the head does, but not the body. Little Karda, funny looking head. Not Irona, Rosie the robot from Rosie the robot crossed with the robot from Lost in Space. It's pretty funny, and Irona a little bit, but a male one. The accursed Sky Stench. I called him Sky Stanch because I didn't know how to say stance. He probably should have been called Sky Stance. And in the credits on this one, he's called Sky Stance. Okay, there's a little jumpy part here, but that's the video. The video's very screwed up. This is a much edited version that's watchable. The other version really wasn't. This is as good as it's going to ever get. That's StarCraft flying away and blowing up. And he was another one of those Veritech combiner ones. I love those combiners. This guy is Jet Smash. He didn't even have a head. So no head. Some of them don't have a head. Either the head fell off or I never built one. The bad guys are, of course, building more toys to sell. I think probably the most bizarre and creative Kardas we did were some of the ones for the Transtech movies. I think part 2, which was hilarious. The other nephews, Danny, who then was grown, and Philip, who was the kid at that point, who helped on the animation on some of the trans stuff. He thought it was hilarious that I had taken some like dolls from the Fantastic Four line that were just out, and their heads and faces were the right size for assemblage into a Karda female Autobot. So you could have the female Autobots actually look like something, as opposed to the ones that were in Transtech 1, that 2003, that didn't really look like anything. So we rebuilt the female Autobots with the heads, plastic heads, torn off of female Fantastic Four figures, and painted them up to look like robot heads. Put paper clay on their hair. It's hilarious. So the Invisible Girl became a robot, and I think there was at least one that was an X-Men figure. It was like Storm, her head, which was funny. It was like a Happy Meal toy or something. It became Moonracer. But yeah, so we rebuilt the female Autobots. And why would they have gender in Transformer Land? I don't know. I like that this thing is kinetic and hyper and kind of plays like a Michael Bay movie in a way. It's just they're basically not concerned with what's going down. Although one of the conceits about the Michael Bay movies, one of the problems with it, is that something that we clearly understand and Michael Bay didn't, is the personalities for each one of these robots is the movie, not the people. The robots are the important part. They're the people that reflect humanity. Like the Terminator in Terminator 2 or like the robot, like Optimus Prime, he's a different kind of character from Megatron. And Skyfire's a different guy. He's sort of a scientist, but a soldier. Or we have, Ironhide, the flinty soldier, or whatever. We have Cup, the old warrior, like he's with all of his like war stories and stuff. You have Grimlock, who's just kind of dumb but brutish. You have these Transformers that have these personalities that don't seem to exist in the Michael Bay movies. Not really until the third one did they realize, we should give them like interesting personality quirks, like have the Wreckers be like NASCARs and stuff, which is interesting, but not right, but interesting. Actually, what those guys should have been was the Junkions. But oh well. But yeah, the Junkions, because they're always getting wrecked. But I guess they said the wreckers are the wreckers. No, a wrecker has to be a truck, I would think. Yeah, it has the wreckers from the comic books were different. They had the comic books too back then. So it's interesting. The blunderbot is basically a blur. Or he's basically he's basically got the power of the black beam gun that Trax has. Yeah. So everybody had a little gun and a personality little thing on the back of their box. You open it up and they'd have a little tech specs that say how strong they are, how intelligent they are, what their little quote is. Like Optimus Prime's quote was, "Freedom is the right of all sentient beings," and Megatron was something like, "I want to, the world is mine," or something. So they would have these little personalities. One of the Predaking said something like, "Destroy all of your enemies." Ah. I like that Megatron's original tech spec said something to the effect of, "He has no known weaknesses." Okay, the enemy Karda. So, they're stealing the rocket prototype so that they can destroy the world. The Michael Bay movies tended to have this sort of like they didn't really get the idea right that Transformers should have personalities and stuff like that, and have these little tech specs, the names and so forth. I don't know if I got all that for you, but they didn't get that. The whole creative thing angle is not just their description of what they are, but how they act and their personalities and them being robots. And Tim and Jim and I would play with them for hours, and it was just like this whole Transformer adventure thing, Karda thing. Unbreakable evil Karda. It kind of looks like a medical tool of some kind. That other one with the scorpion like leg thing from it looks like a Ked's box is just really cheap. Bugging the heck out of the Karda. So yeah, it's like Roach and Toner. It doesn't really look like a roach. So Roach former Roachamacon. So yeah, the Kardas are behaving in this story in bizarre sort of ways. I think that this segment is actually almost over. I'm hoping, at least. And then we'll come up to the behind the scenes. But it doesn't look like yet. The Scratcher and the other ones. Am I trying to convey with the lights that they're reflecting like their energy shooting off of them, or they're welding them or something? Not really sure. They're very creative, I must say, that for 16 and 17 having done this. Very creative, doing these different cardboard little machines. Very inventive. Nowadays they make third-party Transformers. Other companies make them in a little vacuum form of PVC plastic and make their little... Some of those third-party toys are pretty creative, and they really should let Hasbro, they should really make a deal with Hasbro to release some of those as actual Transformers, because I would buy them if they were actually in stores and not hundreds of dollars for third. It's funny that they can get away with that too, because they just give it a weird name, oh, it's not Devastator, it's Build Man, yes, or something, or it's not Starscream and the Seekers, the Decepticon jets. It's the Robo-Jet-trons. So I guess they don't ban them just because they're not exactly Transformers, even though they're clearly saying, "Oh, we're doing business as," but not really. They recently re-released the Jump Starters, Top Spin and Twin Twist. They'll be coming out soon in the third party. The third party. It's good enough. City Ship. City Ship is a cereal box. Wow, what a piece of crap. It's like I didn't even paint him. Here, eat your bran muffin, kids. Cereal box transformer. The other one on next to him is Karda. That's behind him. And then we cut out to the mothership there out on the deck. There's Ratatek. The reason that he was sitting in a box the whole time is he couldn't stand up. He was too top heavy. It wasn't that he was he was a crippled transformer. It's just that he couldn't stand up. So I guess he kind of was. And then we have some other guys. They're going to have a battle now. It looks like they're going to fight. Wow, I just really amazed at the cheesery of this. Not while I'm around. So yeah, the main shield generator. So we have the bad guys apparently deciding that they should kill the good guys and fire their shields at them. I don't think David's actually there when I filmed this part. I think I'm just doing his voice pretty well. Yeah, he's probably not there. I probably filmed this the course of 3 days. These movies were filmed with no budget, no idea for any kind of scripting, and the Dutch angles, you keep seeing it going like... I was just forgot the camera was like 500 million years. I left that in there. That's not supposed to be there. Oh, the evil Karda. Yeah. So the whole premise of this being this cheesy sort of robot adventure, falling into the wrong hands. Ooh. Yeah, it was originally billions of years later, which doesn't make any sense. This was done in 87 in the summer, looks like. And it was just possibly, late summer, would be my guess. It was an old deck there that got torn up. Okay, their whole idea is they got to get this ship, and they got to go to the ship, the celestial orb ship, and leave the Earth. But the Karda decide that in this old classic ploy of like, well, the evil Karda are going to get the ship, so let's blow it up. The classic ploy of the heroes find the way out, but they can't because the good guys are going to find them. They just did that on Transformers Prime in the season finale, the most recent Transformer show. They did that too. They're all, we could get out of here if we have this Omega Lock thing. We can revive Cybertron. No, the Decepticons have it, and they have the humans, and they have the trump card. Oh shit! Let's turn around and go back. Let's take the humans with us. Like, and then they blow it up. So it's like, so they destroy this thing that could get them home, right? So it's like, which begs the question: why didn't they just let the Decepticons fire the thing? The bad guys. Just let them have the ship long enough for them to take it and then blow it up after they take the humans back. So that way they kill two birds with one stone. All the Decepticons are on the ship and then you blow it up. I didn't think of that. So we didn't learn like plotting and pacing and story points and stuff until college, really. John and Tim and I went to Evergreen, and then Tim dropped out and he went to City, local colleges, JC's, and then John and I went on to San Jose State, and then again on to San Jose State many years later, and we were the first in our group and in Pine Hill, all of Pine Hill, to get a college degree, and then to get a full university degree, and then get another one. That's what I did, and so also we had some experience writing books and things. I went on and wrote ghost wrote and re-edited, proofread and stuff. My grandmother's historical novel, Blessings Deferred. And back in '89, I promised that I would get it done for her. eventually, and she had no question that I would, and it took me until I was 32 and a half to get it done. We discovered it when I was 30, so it took 2 years to finish it. We rediscovered it, the manuscript. Later on, took some of my science fiction storybooks. I was always writing nonfiction journals on location in all of its forms since I was 14. Still doing it. Now it's more blogs and journals, but times have changed. And I also wrote science fiction stories. John and I wrote Starcrackers together, and he was consultant. Starcrackers. And he was consultant, Star Trek sort of thing. Well, it's sort of a Star Trek spoof, but it's more of a sci-fi spoof. And then we wrote a Star Trek Chimera fan club, Silly Trek at the time, 87. Chimera is the current one, and PlanetCom, which became Distant Destinies, and that's one book so far that came out in 2008. There are 5 more or 6 more. It's just that we have not seen them yet. They haven't come out yet. We're still working on 2. 2 had a lot of problems, so it's taken 4 years to fix that. But the other ones are going to be good. In the 90s, John and I, under our real names, Adam and John, we did Deep Space Nine spec script when they were accepting spec scripts over at Deep Space Nine, Star Trek, and submitted it. We also submitted to the new show Star Trek Voyager a year later. Submitted a script there as well. We were probably the only Pine Hill students that we know of that actually wrote a script to send into a television show to get it accepted. The show didn't get accepted, though. The DS9 script was returned at the end of the series with a rejection letter that was actually ultimately positive. It said Lolita Faccio, the script coordinator, said something to the effect of that we had done something with the Dominion that they were going to do differently, and you couldn't have known because you weren't on the staff. However, your story was very creative, and you have a real good grasp of the characters on DS9, especially Cisco and Jake and Kira. They liked how we had it was a Cisco episode, and they liked that. And elements of our script indirectly were referenced in some of the episodes of the Dominion War, which was awesome. We will take the credit for the female Vorta in the episode The Ship, which they said, I said there should be a female Vorta, and they have it in that episode. We'll take credit for that. Thank you very much. Our stuff did end up in the in Star Trek. Even though they said the script is rejected, they used some of it. So that's pretty cool. They also used Next Generation. They used the Borg. We thought of the cybernetic alien virus assimilation thing in 87 before Next Generation started. So we had the Borg already. We were thinking along the same lines that they were. We were thinking, what would be cool is if Terminator-like robots took over some people at our school and turned us into robotic zombies. So the same idea. So we're on the same wavelength. We were on the same wavelength a lot with our Star Trek. So that's cool. So the Voyager script was a Tuvok episode. And that was only rejected because the boardroom had decided there were too many Tuvok episodes the season that it was aired. It was second season. And I was thinking, why didn't they just air it in the 6th season, in which there weren't a lot of Tuvok episodes? It was certainly a standalone. It didn't require the Dominion or anything. So we followed their idea and said, we're not going to necessarily do an alien race that's familiar. We'll just make up one. That story later became a Starcrackers, but it has since been rejected from Starcrackers as making its own thing separately. We're completely retooling our Starcrackers story right now, and the Star Trek parody thing, so that it has less conspiracy theories and less of this sort of like overarching story arc that really didn't work originally. It was more X-Files-y, too X-Files-y, and it's so dated we just can't use it. But the premise of them being space cops on a ship and being the working stiffs was always there, and that's part of it. And the whole premise originally of Starcrackers was there aren't really aliens there. We have to find them. And that's just because we didn't have, like, we had the wherewithal, but we didn't have the idea that we could just not. We could have aliens. That's fine, but we couldn't film that. So we're like, there aren't any aliens. Like, we didn't. We could have had aliens. We should have had aliens. We have hybrids, so we might as well have aliens. So it's funny that this story is like took a long time. We are at the end of. Okay, to be continued. We're at 50:22, and there's the names. We are going into the left on the cutting room floor, deleted scenes. And unlike on Trans, I'm going to explain some of these deleted scenes to you. The deleted scenes. All right, here we have. We have the dresser up there, so it's all like I got to cover the dresser with a phony frozen part. Okay, we have. Boatbot was just annoying. That's why he's not in there. That's a commercial bumper. We had commercial bumpers. We had planned to air this on TV, apparently. This would have been awful. I'm glad we didn't air it on TV. Okay, here we have just random weird stuff. Almost like 2001 A Space Odyssey kind of stuff. It's a mirror with a camera in front of it. We just have random weird stuff going on. We have a sheet. What am I doing? That's why it was ended up on the cutting room floor. That's why we couldn't use it. Let's see. Oh my gosh. The oceans recede. I think we're going to get into the billions of years part at this point. It's just must say it's very odd. This is just. I can see why this part's cut out. This is just me narrating a blank set up there. Some cars. I really don't think there's any kind of a plot in here. I think it's just random, Boatbot again, who was annoying. I rebuilt him in 2004. And he had like 2 lines, and then he got thrown on the pyre, the fake artificial pyre, and set on fire. He also got set on fire in 94 too, I think. Didn't mention his name though. What's funny about Karda 2 is apparently they find out that there's this Quintesson guy, the Quintesson deity shows up, tells them that it's not billions of years later. It's not even hundreds of years later. It's not even a decade later, and yet they don't like that. So the good guys kill him. They roast him, crucify him. And what's funny is I can see why this is cut out because like I referenced, let's find out if the Transformers are still alive, but I don't show it. What's he doing? Yeah, I can see why that's cut out. There's my leg again. The space Lego base. Oh, this is the explanation for how it could be billions of years later and how the base can be like written. Like, what the heck was I doing? And evidently, I'd never seen a map of the Bay Area at this point. They're on the East Bay. Is that turned around sideways? Yeah, it's upside down. I guess. I don't know. Doesn't look like they're near Oakland. Looks like they're near Fremont. If that's supposed to be the Bay Area, Oakland's on the other side. Oh well, the peninsula. Oh well, maybe it's like further up. And then they're going to go to the Hawaiian Islands and go to Japan, apparently. Why would they do that? Why would they go to Simultech? Why would they destroy it? 5418, sort of. But yeah, so it's like this is just wow. Well, they got some Transformers in this one, Jetfire included. Oh, this is a flashback to that scene in the other one, referencing that there were Transformers in Karda. Their scene just didn't make any sense visually. It was just like you could see the bed and the wall, but that wasn't just it. It didn't make sense. Neither did. What the heck am I doing there? It's like a spinning camera dolly pan. And then out the window, and poof, what am I doing? You can see why that was cut out. Everything was wrong with that shot. Everything. It's spectacular. Oh my gosh. And there's my hand in front of the camera. Like, I thought that looked really cool. It's because this old camera was a JVC from 1984. It was black and white when you looked through the viewfinder. So you couldn't tell what you were really filming until you watched it. So it would look really cool to see this shimmering sort of overlit, overexposed hand. But when you watched it in like high def, on something more high def than this, and we didn't have stuff that was as high def as this, it didn't like to look right at all. Oh no, now they're going to do the anti-solid batteries. Anti-sol batteries. I have no idea what I mean there. I don't know. Did I mean that they were like solar batteries? Because like they were antimatter batteries? Which reminds me of that episode from Transformers in which the Megatron had antimatter. He made an antimatter bomb. And then he made an antimatter gun out of himself and fired it. Again, if it's antimatter, he can't touch it because he's made of matter. So apparently they were thinking of, well, that was silly too, because Chip Chase was able to reactivate the battle computer on Prowl with his home computer modem that was probably operating around 128K to reactivate a robot brain and somehow like make him like a video game and run him. How did that with a Commodore 64 computer? Wow. How do you do that? Okay, this whole 2 billion years later doesn't make any sense. Of course, we didn't know anything about science or geography or space science at this point. We were making it up. Teenagers. No. And it's like 2 billion years. No, the Earth would be considerably warmer because it would be like 2 billion years later. There probably wouldn't be any humanoid life of any kind. And if the robots completely turned to rust at this point and buried under all kinds of sediment and stuff, somehow they managed to survive, they wouldn't. Wow, that's just fragged right there. The video's just. Wow, that was just a fragged part because the video's fragged. Fragged video. Some of my other stuff got fragged. I'm not sure what we're going to do with all the commentaries. We're going to commentary on every trans. Probably just on this one, and then we'll do Trans 2, the pilot, because Mark's Cards is in it. We'll also do I'll do myself. I'll probably do the Blair Witch parody, that one too. I'm probably not going to do Alicom because there's really not much more to say about all that stuff unless there's some reason to do that. The Alicom Reunion Cities saga. Until all are one. Tim Cantrell went on to get married in 1999 and doing his own thing and all that. Tim and Jim lived together for a while, and it drove Tim to drink literally for a while there in the 90s, and then and he was doing stuff he shouldn't do, drugs and stuff. But then he got over that, and then he settled down and got married. During the so he didn't do that anymore. During the run of Jim is on prescription meds. So we have the various characters in here, and Jim lives in SoCal now. He's not actually in this though. We have a character called Morton Roadkill, who is Galvatron and Thompson and some other characters in Starcrackers. He's basically supposed to be Jim Buffkin, but we couldn't get Jim to actually act in our movie. But it's clearly supposed to be him. The same voice. I'm Megatron. It's Jim. It's supposed to be him. Like Clint Cowpoke is supposed to be Tim. Oh, cool Cowpoke. Cool. You know what I'm talking about. The Black Angus. Some of those characters have reappeared on video. You can go on the YouTube sites that we have. Calcat Show. Look it up. And you can watch our Calcat, Silly Kelly doing music reviews to this day. Movie reviews, I should say. Clint Cowpoke doing commentaries. Calcat doing commentaries. And today, now you can see them on the YouTube, and you can see old Transtech. We posted it. We got all the copyrighted music taken out. Some of these later ones, though, we have the copyrighted music in it. So yeah, this is just for archival purposes, really. But it's fun to look back on it. We're not putting this on YouTube. It's just disjointed. But looking at what this is, it was creative for its time. It was very hyper and kinetic, and I obviously had a lot of fun doing this. And I was not on any kind of drugs. No, I was just really hyper. Just a lot of chocolate. Probably Hershey bars probably munching Snickers and Hershey's and Kit Kats, going, this next scene, this robot's gonna go over here, over there. Ew, basically, Jim and I were Beavis and Butthead. Before Beavis and Butthead, the two weirdos, the two characters, the case kid, after the Creech and Crotch, which was John Williams, sort of a lower voice. Jim and I were basically Beavis and Butthead. Before Beavis and Butthead started, we're on the same wavelength as Mike Judge. And we were like, of course, watching the reruns and marathons and stuff. But it was the strangest thing. There's that we would the live action Beavis and Butthead. It'd be all, hey, Beavis, I would be the lower voiced one, and Jim would be like, he would literally act like that. So we were what Mike Judge was thinking of. He didn't visit Pine Hill, but if he had, well, these two guys, they're Beavis and Butthead. But no, we weren't really, but we predated them. Yeah, we had that vibe going. And Mark's cards, he was just kind of more of a brooding type, and he liked the whole. If it was a term for it, back then, it would have been emo, I guess. We were all kind of emo, but some more than others. He never really wore black or anything like a true goth, but we were always very either hyper or subdued or manic in our stuff. This scene is no, it's not necessarily going to enhance any of it. It's going to be crap. The admiral that you can't see is looking at you, but it's like, yeah. Remember this one time that Jim and Tim and I were eating lots of chocolate and getting hyper and like going off the roof over his house, and Jim actually hallucinated that things were coming out of the walls. Yeah, they weren't there. We were not that high off chocolate and Coca-Cola and Pepsi and stuff. He saw stuff that wasn't there, and we're like, okay, that's way too much. I don't know what it was. I saw we're going out the ceiling. But there was this hilarious instance in which we had Tripticon. It was this little robot, motorized Decepticon Dino City thing that walks like Godzilla. It's like on the ground, And Jim's was slightly broken because he'd ripped the toe pegs off of him. And so he wouldn't walk straight. He would like go and fall over, or like one of his legs would fall down because he messed with it. And we thought that was the most hilarious moment in the universe, and we just played it over and over again. And we played it over and over again because it was awesome. So yeah, this. Of course, on the Calcat show, you can see some of our John and I's infamous stories where we commented on our infamous younger days of the couple of wild parties we'd been to that were not really that wild, and a comic convention where a Star Trek convention where I had actually had a grasshopper and to drink when I was in my 20s, and apparently that got me really silly. But it was probably also the sugar, the candy, and I remember laughing my head off about like going to the bathroom, and taking a crap, hotel room. I was in the hotel room, and I was like, "Oh, this is so funny." I wasn't high; I was just really hyper. I don't know what's going on. Ew. I think the only experience we had with actually like getting a buzz off something, was, except for other wild parties, was that wild party that one time when I was younger. When the only ever time Jim and I were ever really Beavis and Butthead was when we were watching a marathon of Beavis and Butthead, and Tim's cousin and Tim were in his room blazing up on the ganja, the green stuff, the leafy stuff, and they were blazing up, and it was all over the basement. And Beavis and Butthead suddenly got really funny, really, really, really funny. It was back in the '90s, and we're like, oh, this is really funny for some reason. I don't know why. It's like, oh, it's the pot smoke. Oh God, we're stoned. Ew, I remember in ew, and then there's funny moments that happen to other people. Like we were at a the water slide park, the Raging Waters park, and we had there was this lady who was too fat to get into there was this little inner tube ride where you go around down on the inner tubes, and this lady was trying the worst way to get into that inner tube. It was just too small. She had one leg in there and one leg out, and she was like maybe 280 pounds trying to get into this inner tube that clearly would only be like big enough for maybe somebody 90 pounds, and she just couldn't get in it. And we're like, oh no. And we're like trying to keep from laughing. We were like young college age, I guess. But acting very mature. And then we sailed off on the living river thing, the little river thing on our little inner tubes. Got around the corner and Jim and I are like laughing our asses off. Tim, whoa, do you see the lady? Whoa. And we're all like, it's like really mean. But we didn't laugh at her. We laughed like after we turned around the corner. But it's like, my God. But so it's like, wow. The Karda is just so the base. I can see why this is not included. The Graco thing is obvious. That box is. Actually, it's Evenflow. Oh, it's Evenflow. That's another brand. Evenflow stroller box base. Yeah, biggest Karda base ever, actually. That thing is huge compared to the other ones. I wonder if, like, when they were talking about even flow in the rock music, they were talking about even that. No, they weren't. They're talking about gin. That's booze. Yeah. But there's whiskey Spock here for a little short. One time I was at the Bacon, the convention thing, a couple of years ago, and I had a lemon tea thing. It was a lemon iced tea lemonade thing with lemon in it, and make it. I wanted him to make it alcohol, put alcohol in it. And by adding some white rum, he made it into a mojito. And he said, I'll just make it a mojito. And I didn't know what that was, so I said, okay, that. And then I described it to John later. He said, that's a mojito. Because John knows. So he's like, yeah, it's a mojito. So, okay, that's what that was. It was very, very watered down, though. I only got a little buzzed. You can see that Bacon special where I'm a little buzzed. I think it's still online. And you can see me filming the table like the saucer section in Star Trek. I filmed like the side of going, but I meant to do that. It's not like I did it on purpose. I meant to do that. I did. But yeah, so it was a little blitzed. And right after that, I said something to the effect of finding like the trash can at Bacon and going, now let it not be said that you cannot find crap at Bacon. Look, I filmed into the trash can. It's pretty funny. But this is Karda. This is kind of crappy too. But it's creative. I think even if they'd said, oh, this is stupid back in the day, it would have been like the other one too. It would have been like, well, don't stifle our creativity. We're going to eventually become awesome. So yeah, I could see this working if it was like, had a plot and a script and it had character stories and Karda. And we didn't want to do a whole Karda movie with trans tech. So we just, Transformers Meet Robotech. So we just included a cameo by the Karda in each movie and had them do something new with a new strawberry, and it was a G.I. Joe. And we did that instead, which seemed to work better. And And this is of course the whole thing. The Karda. We do want to reinvent them. We're still working on how to do that. We want to rebuild the Karda at some point and have maybe some Flash Tune videos with them. Have the Karda actually rebuilt as toys that are actually usable and playable over a period of time. We've tried to come up with new figure designs and more armature designs to make them stronger and make them transformable. Rebuild some of the classics. That would be awesome. Some of the new ones. There's Copy Karda. Of course, we had to set him on fire in the sequel. Yeah. So we have the orb ships. Ooh. Five billion. Yeah, that's for reference to PlanetCom, which I thought to fold the Earth there too. But I did a commentary on PlanetCom recently, in which I reread this. We actually had a screenplay for that, a script, and I read the script for 5.5 hours, and which is really long if you want to watch it, but it's long. You want to watch that condensed version of that. There's a 2007 version as well. If you want to sit through the whole script reading and see some of the visuals as well. I think the script reading is fine though. We're not going to do any more PlanetCom. It's too much like Distant Destinies. We could do a Distant Destinies Flash video movie, but it would take too long to do the whole book. The book's over 500 pages. It would be like 90 minutes of it. We'd like to do that at some point in the future. I don't know what we would use for figures, though. We can't just use G.I. Joes like we did with Robotech and PlanetCom Saga. Or we could make like a parody of it, I suppose. 1/3 of the explosion of the world. What am I talking about? Now we're coming to the end of the this commentary track, and we have just blown up something with dirt. And it has been fun watching Karda. And this is much more entertaining than Trans was, actually, to watch. And here we come to the end. It looks like we're getting toward the end, and we have lots of shimmering white stuff. Oh, there you go. Bye. Destroyed.